Good afternoon, and welcome to this very special edition to the Dialogue tonight. Dialogue with Dozell. You see it with some Facebook Lives. You've seen the posters this week. We're doing it kind of like we used to do it. Um, People have asked me why you're doing this special show because it is the heat of the moment, and I just think this needs to be dealt with. Joining me tonight will be, you'll see them shortly, our frequent guest family, Janis Hazel, radio producer out of Detroit, and my good friend, my neighbor, Donato Del Rimple, and I hope I didn't butcher your last name, brother. You're going to see them in just a second. I want to give some context to the night show, and again, um, people say, why didn't you just save this? Well, Monday, we got some special circumstances coming up, but also it's the heat of the moment. And why should we not cash in while this thing is hot? Tonight's show deals with the current controversy between Kanye West and now Irving and our Jewish community. Thank you, Charlene. How you doing, Curtis? Thank you for joining in. Share this show if y'all would, please. This is going to bring us to the core. Let me just give some background. Kyrie, you're going to see the tweet in just a second. Kyrie posted a tweet a few weeks ago that was taken. Not Kyrie. They both start with K. Kanye posted a tweet that has since been taken down by Twitter. Where you see what he says. Uh, I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. The funny thing is, I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jew also in his language. You guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball whoever opposes your agenda. So let me just tell you what that DEFCON 3, that means that it's on and popping. This means that we're getting ready to go to battle imminently. If it was used in the military, it would mean that probably in 15 minutes we're engaging in a particular battle. Okay. Uh, we're probably going to skirt. Hopefully we will survive the censors at Facebook, and this won't be looked at as a hate show. Our guests tonight are not coming on to debate. They're coming on to share perspective, and to give further context to this show tonight. You heard Kanye's comments that says that I don't call me anti-Semitic because black people were the original Jews, he said in essence. And that goes to the Hebrew Israelite movement, which is like some people in America, especially those who are threatened by anything that black people come together and coalesce to do, would say that it's a black hate group, and the contention of Hebrews, I'm close enough and know enough about them that it is their contention is that black people were the original Jewish people, and that's what Kanye is saying. He says, "Don't say that I'm being hateful or that I'm being violent, because I would be violent then towards my own people, because that's what, in fact, we are." So, as a result of all of this, Kanye started losing contract after contract after contract. And you saw the statement that he made at the end is, "Don't come at me and accuse me of this because I'm not suicidal coming at my own people." It was his frustration that he voiced that the and without offense, I'm using the term traditional Jewish people um, have they own Hollywood, they own a lot of entities, Wall Street, a lot of entities of the financial nature in America, and they control the music industry, control a lot of people's livelihoods, and he is a part of that. As you know, he's an entertainer par excellence. I'll make this comment: genius is borderline with insanity, and so that I'll just leave that out there. So after his tweet, even though it was pulled down almost immediately by Twitter, we don't know under the current context of the ownership of Twitter how this will play out in the future. But at that point, Twitter had some sanity about it, and it didn't allow anything that bordered on hatred or violence to be propagated. It was one of the most responsible social media entities uh, as far as curtailing violence and those kinds of things. Facebook has come under the gun after January the 6th, because a lot of transmission and communication took place via Facebook and Instagram. However, Kanye started losing contracts after contracts, and his biggest contract is Adidas. And contract was Kanye was listed. His net worth was $1.3 billion prior to this controversy. Adidas was one of the last companies to hold out and not to cease doing business with Kanye. Not this past weekend, but last weekend. I understand that members of the Jewish Defamation League or Jewish Defense League, enough of them put enough that Monday, Adidas, in fact, did drop their business association with Kanye, costing him $1 billion because his net worth is now falling down to $3 million. I learned an economic lesson along the way. I thought net worth was liquid assets. No, but it's not that. It's the income that you have at your disposal. So he lost that. Let me bring the panelists on then, and we'll start this conversation. And I'll talk more about the collaborators with Kanye, his business persons. Uh, but let's bring on Janis Hazel. Janis is my cousin. She is a radio producer, and she's using an avatar tonight. She is in a remote location. That's the best she can do. She's a beautiful young lady, you know. Uh, but she is on, and she is going to speak and from a perspective, and my good friend who accepted to be with us tonight to give us another perspective on this is Donato. And I'm so great. Thank you, Donato. Thank you so kindly for joining us tonight. And let me just hear you all introduce yourselves and just kind of introduce your perspective.
Okay, so I'm Janis Hazel. I'm in Detroit, Michigan, and I have been loosely watching or hearing about this topic bubbling up with regards to NBA All-Star Kyrie Irving and performance recording artist Kanye West. And what I would like to just say as my opening statement, without completely delving into their individual issues, is I have found that whenever a Black American or African American, whichever you choose, speaks up about Black issues, the treatment of Black people in America, the poor treatment of Black people in America, enslavement, reparations, anything that is pro-Black or pro-Black African American, those comments are always taken as anti-Semitic, as confrontational, as anything other than exactly what they are: a Black person who has lived their life in a very racist society that is anti-Black, and they're speaking to that. So I will just say, to start off the conversation, from my perspective, I and so many other people that I know who have a public platform are not anti any other race, ethnicity, gender identity, age, disability. We're just pro-Black. And there never seems to be space for Black Americans to be pro-Black. So that's my opening statement. Thank you.
So just give us a brief opening statement, and we'll delve right into this.
Yeah, Dozell, you're talking to me there?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Can you
okay,
hear?
I'm sorry. I didn't catch that first part. My name is Donato Dalrymple, and
Thank you.
I'm here actually on a spiritual level, if that could be understood, on representing what God's word is having to say on these issues that we're living in. And yes, so I'll just carry on when the questions are asked.
Thanks, Donato, and thanks
Yes,
for helping me with the pronunciation of your name. With a name like Dozell, you know I would not, in any wise, be about trying to mess up somebody's name.
yes,
Okay, so we want to thank our YouTube and our Facebook guests, and those of you who are going to join us later. The only disadvantage of that is that you don't get to participate in the dialogue because we take your comments and our guests. And Janis is kind of like a guest slash commentator. She's often with us as a commentator. But tonight, I kind of want to keep the scales balanced and not and keep a perspective of maybe not overdo it. So she's kind of representing
I'm on.
a cause tonight. So um, the first concern is okay. So what really drew my attention to this, I kind of okay when I heard this happen, I said, "Wow, here's Kanye. He's back at it again." He's back in the news. It's another controversy. And for you all who know Kanye's history, he is very controversial. Now it's ironic that African Americans are really rallying behind him, but he has made some very outlandish statements towards his own race, saying that slavery was voluntary, that George Floyd got what he got because he was on fentanyl, and we know he has very actively embraced the previous president. I don't even call that guy's name, and made controversial statements in support of him against his own people. However, now that he has lost a major portion of his wealth, I had absolutely no idea that one contract was $1 billion. I thought collectively that's what brought him to that $1 billion. He is now, I don't want to say playing the victim because we're here to examine tonight. Is he a victim? So we're just going to kind of throw this out. But what brought me into the conversation and what precipitated this special dialogue tonight was Kyrie Irving. Now we know Kyrie does not. He is very socially conscious. Often we second guess his way of expressing his social consciousness. Last year, he likely caused his team a great opportunity to be in a better seat in the basketball players because he decided not to vaccinate. He said he was not against vaccinations personally, but he did it for everybody who was made to vaccinate. And so, who paid the price for that? His basketball team, the citizens. I mean, the fans of the New Jersey. Of the Brooklyn Nets. Now I'm going way back. So he jumped in this and he posted Kyrie posted a video, which hopefully we're able to see just a small snippet of it at some point, which basically laid the premise that blacks were the original Hebrews, uh, which is what the contingent is of Hebrew Israelites. And he tweeted it. He tweeted the video, the name of the video, and he had a wink sign on it. And boy, they jumped on him immediately. The NBA quickly denounced anti-Semitism. The Brooklyn Nets denounced anti-Semitism, and then today the NBA Players Association came out and denounced anti-Semitism. And he originally had a news conference. We're going to play a little bit of that news conference that turned out to be quite combative with the local reporter. And so, consequently, the Brooklyn Nets have done two things. They have prevented him from taking part in post-game news conferences, and they fired their coach, who they would not fire over the summer at the request of Kevin Durant, the superstar of the team. But they fired him because the contention is that he's unable to control his locker room. So there's a lot being going on. I'm just trying to say why we call this special one tonight. We want to deal with this. We're possibly going to have to go further and talk at another time about this. But I just want to ask you all, Donato, what have you seen and what have you heard, and what are your initial uh, impressions by what you've seen and heard by these two entertainer athletes?
Well, especially about Kanye. To be honest with you, I was very, very excited when I heard that, the kingdom of darkness lost, a soul, and that he came into the light and the understanding of Jesus, who I call Yeshua by his Hebrew name. But then I realized, I'm not judging the man. I just think that he's out there somewhere, but it's not biblical. This is one of the things that we need to do is we need to understand our Bible. And again, I'm not judging Kanye by anything, but there's one scripture that I'm wanting to share, and it's real quick. I don't have the quote of the scripture, but anybody can look it up if they want. It says, "I will bless those that bless Israel, and I will curse those that curse Israel." We have to understand the blessing and cursings of the Lord, and we also need to understand what he calls an abomination, what he calls a blessing. And I think right now what Kanye is doing is, openly, there's a lot of things that we can all think in our minds, but we when we have a platform, we need to be careful of how we address the world with that. And I think that he's going down the wrong path, especially, as a believer. He calls himself a believer, that he's going down the wrong path by going against Jewish people and going against, some of the things. And I think by having an education, most of these people got here to this country in the hardest of times. And they came here, and, if anybody knows anything about Jewish people, and I do a lot, I've been around Jewish people my whole life, is that they stress education, 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 education. And they built themselves up by going to school. And so, with him having a hard time with the people being in Hollywood or being bankers or being accountants and whatever they are in this life, is because they worked hard to get there. So I don't understand why he's, coming against the Jewish people at large, or, I think because, something, he has a platform and he believes that people are going to listen to him, so there you go.
Donato, I think that's a very fair point that you point out that Jewish people came to this nation and really went after what we all thought, and we've all teach this, that education, in our perspective, education is the way out of the ghetto. It's the way out of the lower socioeconomic strata where a lot of
can I share
people,
this real quick? Can I just
ahead,
share this?
go
Because
ahead.
I think this is beautiful, especially for Janis to hear this, because I know that I'm a Caucasian, but I just want to say I got a black Jamaican wife, and she grew up in the ghettos of Jamaica, and she didn't know where she was getting her next meal from. Her father was a real difficult man, and they had family problems, and he snatched a couple of the children. She was one of them, but he wasn't planning on what he was going to do to take care of these children. So anyway, as life went on for her, as she got to high school, she knew her only way out, and nobody helped her. Her only way out was education. And here she is today, to make the long story short, a black woman in America, right? And she coming from another country. She got herself this is her second, actually, master's degree, and she's working as a CPA, and she's also elevated in the business that she's in, the company. Not many black people are in the accounting business, at least from what we know. And I'm just saying, and she's been elevated in this company to senior tax manager. You know why? Because they see her brain. They're not looking at her for anything other than the fact that she does her job. She's smart, she's witty, she's charming, and she's a good person. So I just wanted to throw that in, that not everybody's judging everybody on their who they are from what they look like on the outside. Now I know that's how America, that's the mindset for America. But something, we have a different story, and that's our story. So I can't share everybody else's story, but that's our story. And the Lord is blessing us.
Jan, I know you're chopping at the bit. Give me 1 second, and I'm gonna defer to you. I'm glad that you brought up the fact that Kanye came out of the kingdom of darkness. That's a spiritual connotation that basically he was born again. He accepted Christ,
Right.
and this I will say, and you know, our audience in Dozell knows that I'm a preacher, and whatever I do in life, I will die as a preacher. I may not die as the president of the Hills of Inver. I may not die as a policeman. I may not die as a school teacher, but I will be a preacher to the day I go to my grave. Um, but Kanye, during the pandemic, you know, when we were watching a lot of YouTube and just you know, we had a lot of time to ourselves. I just happened to put on the Jesus Walk video because I always, you know, I looked to see if it was possibly, this is not my term, but Jesus sacrilegious. And I'm going to tell you that video. And there were a lot of entertainers, and I thought exploited the black church by recording with black church choirs, and and I examined the message. You know, Varner did. I want to know what love is. That was kind of a different. So it's dealing with. Hopefully, they were talking about agape love in that video, but that happened back in the '80s. But there's been a fad of going and bringing a black church choir and put it behind it, and you're going to not only reach another audience, but it's going to propel your record. And Janis is going to speak to all that because she's worked in the record industry. But Kanye, his comments between the bars of that song, it was almost, and we know the anointing of God when we're sitting under it. Kanye his presentation was so anointed. It was anointed as any sermon I'd heard or any gospel uh, presentation, any choir singing. And it was with a Chicago choir, and we kind of got an affinity for that because I went to a lot of churches in Chicago. But it was just absolutely anointed, and it certainly, if nothing else, all of the connotation you got to hear. Here's Kanye again, something crazy. Here he goes. There he goes. It really backed up what you just said. That if anything, man, he certainly is spiritual. Thank you, Charlene. I appreciated that. Yes, he did demonstrate a man of God. Janice, go ahead. I know you've been chomping at the bit.
Well,
Not being able to see you puts a different light on this thing. But go ahead.
well, aren't we supposed to be colorblind? Aren't we supposed to be blind of isms, whether it be genderism, sexism, racism, ageism, ableism, or any ism there? So it really shouldn't matter if you see me animated or this photo. I am not quite sure why Donato um, positioned his statement about his marriage partner, uh, directed it towards me. But it's always interesting when a white person in America uh, speaks to their proximity to Blackness via marriage or partnership or whatever that relationship might be. And I hope that you have a wonderful marriage, and I certainly accept that your spouse is a phenomenal person. But it really irritates me when a white person, America, starts off a conversation by saying that my wife, my child, my neighbor, whoever that is Black. Uh, let's just keep it real. Only Black people in America know what it's like to walk in our skin every day, all day. And allyship is certainly needed. More of that is needed all across the world. But I'm not quite sure why that was directed at me, particularly not knowing the person that was cited. So I will just make another statement which follows up on my opening remarks. Was in America, we're told to remember everything but slavery. Remember the Holocaust that did not happen in the United States. Remember 9/11, even remember the Alamo, but mention slavery, enslavement, reparations, anything that is pro Black, people lose their minds. Again, we're in the United States, and there is this assumption or this allegation or this thought that we are the freest people in the world, as undergirded by the First Amendment, which is supposed to guarantee freedoms concerning religion, expression, assembly, and the right to petition. And so, if those five freedoms are protected, speech, religion, press, assembly, and the right to petition the government, then what Kanye and Kyrie Irving have said are protected under freedom of speech. So then I think we get to this layer of anti-Semitism and hate speech, which is what it's being called. Now, I have to confess, I have not seen the film, nor have I read the book that Mr. Irving was citing, Hebrews to Negroes, Wake Up Black America, which is based on a book of the same name by Ronald Dalton. And without seeing it, I can't comment on it. I've just read various interpretations of it being anti-Semitic. And I don't know because I haven't read it, but I will say that, again, anytime a Black person is pro-Black, and in this instance, it appears to be that there's a religious component to this, and individuals who consider themselves Black Hebrews, Black Israelites, automatically a label is placed on them as being anti-Semitic, being this controversial, being dangerous. Let us not forget COINTELPRO, right? That was investigating Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, a Baptist minister in the United States. Malcolm X, who was a minister of the Nation of Islam, and other Blacks, they're automatically labeled as anti-Semitic when you will not find in any speeches of Malcolm X or of Dr. King that were anti-Semitic or targeting of any other racial or ethnic or any other group. They were speaking from a pro-Black, pro-African American agenda, a Black nationalist view, perspective, and yet all of these negative labels were placed on them. And so I know that the topic is about Kyrie and Kanye. I think the bigger issue for me is that when Black people address Black issues and are pro-Black, unapologetically Black about their ethnicity, their racial identity, we're considered anti-Semitic. So if you've seen the film, break it down. What is it that's truly anti-Semitic within it? And again, inside the United States, we are supposed to have protected free speech. So if the producers of this film produce from their perspective and their experience, their lived experience, what they believe their religion to be and the foundations of it, well, that's protected by speech. Now, was there hate speech? I've not seen anything specific to that about Mr. Irving's comments or Kanye, and I am not a Kanye fan. However, what about it specifically, the film, the book, and the comments by Mr. West and Mr. Irving are anti-Semitic and or hate speech?
You know what? Let's do this. Donato, did you want to respond real quickly before we go to break?
Yeah, I like Janis already. She's quite interesting. Listen, I heard a Clefro Dollar, a good guy I've been watching for many years, out of Atlanta, Georgia. He said, it's not a Black thing and it's not a white thing. He said, you know what it is? It's a sin thing. And I don't know why we have to be pro-Black, pro-white, pro this, pro that. We're all here together for the duration. We got to look beyond this skin that we're in. We're spirit beings. You know what I mean? That's what we got to see, that we are spirit beings. And I can tell you one thing, if we don't get out of our past, we'll never, ever, ever, ever go to our future. God's got a plan and he's got a future for all of us. And it's not being pro-Black, it's not being pro-white, or not being pro whatever it is. He has plans for people that will come and join him. And I just think that it's interesting. Don King once said, only in America. And everybody quotes Martin Luther King. But Martin Luther King had a whole different plan than what people are saying today. He was talking about, I had a dream, and that dream was that we were all going to be together, togetherness. Just like that scripture that Jesus, right, Yeshua said in John 17, he said, I would that we would be one as we are one, the Father and the Son, and then those that will follow, that will be one. We're all divided. And guess what? The enemy is having a field day, Janis, because guess what? We're all divided. We're all divided against each other over all these little different things that don't mean anything, like our skin. Because if you start going to Africa, I don't know, Janis, if you ever been to Africa, but I have. I spent off and on 5 years in Kenya as a missionary. And I can tell you right now, racism that we know here in America doesn't exist over there in Africa. They have a whole different mindset. I mean, a completely whole different mindset of what pigment is. You know what I mean? They're just people that are just trying to live their lives. You know what I mean? And here in America, we have pro this, pro that. And I think this is what Kanye, he's making a big mistake right now by jumping in on the bandwagon and trying to define things with a culture and with skin tones, because we need to move beyond that. We need to go far beyond that if we're going to all learn to exist here together and have peace. Because look at our country. We have nothing but crime. People are killing each other. People are hating each other. You know what I mean? And it's all in the name of racism. You know what I mean? And I think, yeah.
Yeah, let's go to break. And I want to pick up on something you said on the other side of the break, but let's hear a word from our sponsors, and let's pick the
Okay.
dialogue back up. BoogieGoodWorld.com. They're the people that make us look good, and tonight to come on and to do this special show for us. You see the quality of work that they do, and we're just so grateful.
I think we lost
back
Dozell.
I'm back, I think. Yeah, it's my daughter Latoya and her team, but we're so grateful for what you all do to make us look good. Because this was a special show tonight, we didn't really do, we either do a dang dog, or we do are you serious, or we do a shout out. Tonight I do want to do a shout out. And I want to do a shout out to my guests tonight and like-minded people. We're dealing with a tough issue, but we're dealing with it in a responsible, spiritual, communal, loving way. And it's not all pleasant. Some of the things that we're saying to each other some of it's challenging, but we have committed to doing it. And I just want to shout out Janis and Donato and like-minded people who can come to the table, maybe with differing perspectives, different backgrounds, and say, let's come together and let's talk this thing out and see if we can work it out. So I shout you guys out tonight, guys, and I shout people like you out tonight. Now, coming out of the shout out, I got to ask you one question, Donato. You were saying that you were speaking of getting out of the past and moving to the future, which is where we know Christ has that plan for us. I
Right.
just read today in the book of Joel where the God of the Old Testament was talking about where we're heading to, coming out of some of the calamities that countries perpetuated to Israel. But I do have to say this, and I want to throw this out for you and Jan to discuss. One of the two most famous words out of the Jewish nation is never again. And I think that, and I think that has merit. I'm not knocking it. I get that, and I think that's why the Jewish community is so sensitive. That's why their radar is so up for anything that will be violent. And I don't think that that's ungodly to say that this ain't gonna happen again. Well, at the same time, African Americans, we're saying that this is not going to happen to us again. You know, we're like the song, "Before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave." That won't happen again. But at the same time, we are fighting. We're fighting to be on even par. I didn't want to make this a show about reparations. I really don't want to make that. But Janice mentioned that earlier. That's one of the things that kind of evens things out and makes it a level playing field. And you talked about uh, education being a predominant virtue of the Jewish community. In my teachings, I don't know if you either of you have ever seen the book The Jewish Phenomenon. I'm here to tell you, there's nothing that you can say negative about the book. A mother introduces her children. One's 4 and one's 11, and she says, "This is the doctor and this is the lawyer," because that's where she's guiding them to in America, where Don King says only in America. Well, then I'm going to make the most of the American dream, and I'm going to guide this child to get the most of it, and I'm going to guide this one to it. So, Jan, weigh in on that. Um, just weigh in on that if you would.
Well, I would have to go back to and for your guest Donato and other white people who are of various racial ethnicities, be they Hispanic, be they Jewish, be they any other group of people outside of black descendants of black Africans. There's this historical naivety of white people in America that it's built on white privilege, and that allows white people in America just to say and do anything that they want to, and until that naivety is obliterated, which continuously wants to deflect responsibility and allow new crimes to be committed against black bodies in this country, and gloss over what is arguably the greatest of all American tragedies and crimes against humanity, is enslavement. And that for me remains the chief issue in this country. It is racism and the way for me that black people are treated, from exclusionary rights, which we're still fighting for. Donato does not know me, but I've worked in the legislative arena writing laws for this country and lobbying for laws as an advocate for industry and nonprofits, as well as a legislative staffer to U.S. senators and congressmen and women. One of them was Congressman John Conyers. And I sat in committee with the congressman when we finally, after 15 years of reintroducing the Martin Luther King holiday bill, got it passed, got it signed by President Reagan. That encompasses the type of fight that black people have to have in this country for everything we have, all of our rights, all of our privileges, which are threatened. And so when I speak from a pro-black perspective, which Donato says, you got to get past race. United States is about race, is about racism and excluding black people from the ability to get an education. That was illegal. Those are laws. The ability to even marry who they want to. Your miscegenation marriage that you cited was illegal in this country. The inability to own property, land, to buy it or even inherit it. On both sides of my family, there are white people. In my family, you will see on both sides, my maternal and paternal, people who darn near look like they're white, from having gray or green eyes to very light skin, but they're black. And because they have Negroic features, not just because of the color of their skin, they are treated less than in this country. So we see it all the time around us, the white privilege that allows white people, just because of their skin color, to think in ways that the white privilege allows them to, and not to understand the Black experience in this country is very different from there. So that's what I speak to. I know we're talking about Mr. Irving and Mr. West, and again, I still wonder, what is it exactly that they said that was anti-Semitic, that the Jewish population in our country became so enraged about? Because I honestly don't know, or the book or the film that has been cited, what in it is truly anti-Semitic and or hate speech? I mean, what is it? Give me the line, give me the phrase, give me a few passages to discuss. And again, it's protected by freedom of speech. Now, if it's hate speech, then we should not tolerate that. Shut it down, boycott it. But what is it they really said? They're saying that Black people are the original Hebrews. Okay, that is their perspective. It is their right to say that. What's the real problem with what Irving and West said? What is the real problem?
Hey, Dozell?
Yes.
Just a small rebuttal with Janis. We live in two different worlds, Janis. I've been on the big scene maybe about 20 years ago. I was involved with one of the biggest news stories of our time, the story of Elian Gonzalez. If you'll remember, I didn't want to bring that up tonight, but it seems to be when we're approached by different people. I've been around people like Condoleezza Rice. She's a Black woman born in Alabama. She has a completely different view on how she sees the America and Blacks being treated in America. Even Barack Obama, because he became president twice here in the United States, and the last time I checked, he's a Black American. You know what I mean? And I just, I don't understand. I think, Janis, and this is with all due respect, is that until we get out from our flesh, this is more of a spiritual understanding than it is a physical one. But until we get out of our flesh, we're doomed here in the United States with thinking like this, because you're thinking like as a segregated person. You want to be segregated. You want to be a Black
Okay, I
nationalist.
cannot even tolerate that, and I'll have to leave the show. Do not ever try to put words in my mouth.
No, but
I have not said anything about segregation.
Why would you run away
I
from
am
just
not a
my thought?
segregationist. And again, there's your white privilege trying to speak to my experience in this country. You speak of Condoleezza Rice. Yes, she has a perspective. She's from Alabama. My mother's from Alabama. They went to the same segregated high school, the only high school in Birmingham
Right.
that Black people could go to. So,
But she's not angry.
Acknowledge.
But she's not angry.
Acknowledge that your white privilege, just because of the color of your skin.
Not
Elian
me.
Gonzalez, if I remember, was
Cuban.
from
Cuba.
He was from Cuba, right? And his father
right,
was
but what I
fighting
was
to get
trying
him
to get at with
back.
that story.
Why are you bringing up a white person? Because Elian Gonzalez, by virtue of being Hispanic, is considered white in this country.
Not really. No.
Let's get back to the topic
when you check the box,
at hand.
When you
Let's
check
get
the
back
box,
to the topic
he's
at
Hispanic.
hand. What is it that Mr. West and Mr. Irving said that was anti-Semitic, and or that film or
Leave
book
that to
that they
Dozell.
were citing?
So let's play. I asked the producer to cut that news conference, and I wish I had asked. I think she's got a 3-minute clip. Maybe we should have shown more of that very contentious news conference. But let's look at the news. Let's look at that clip, and let's go to there. And
I'm
we'll
not here
answer
to be
that
divisive on what's going on this or that. I'm not comparing Jews to blacks. I'm not comparing white to black. I'm not doing that. That conversation is dismissive, and it constantly revolves around the rhetoric of who are the chosen people of God. And I'm not here to argue over a person or a culture or religion on what they believe. No, this is what is here. It's on a public platform. Did I do anything illegal? Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Did I do anything illegal? Did I hurt anybody? Did I harm anybody? Am I going out and saying that I hate one specific group of people? So out of all the judgment that people got from me posting, I just, without talking to me. And then I respect what Joe said, but there has a lot to do with the not ego or pride of how proud I am to be an African heritage, but also to be living as a free black man here in America, knowing the historical complexities for me to get here. So I'm not going to stand down on anything that I believe in. I'm only going to get stronger because I'm not alone. I have a whole army around me.
Follow up on the promotion of the movie and the book.
Can you please stop calling it a promotion? What am I promoting?
Put it out on your platform.
But I'm promoting it? Do you see me in front of
By putting it out there,
the
people
title?
are going to say that you are promoting.
Yeah, I put it out there just like you put things out there, right?
Yeah, but it's not.
You put things out there for a living, right?
Right, but my stuff is not.
So let's move on.
Filled with anti-Semitic
Let's
stuff.
move on. Don't dehumanize me up here.
I'm not doing that.
Another
You're
human
free to
being.
post
I can post whatever I want. So say that and shut it down and move on to the next question.
But Kyrie, you have to understand that
I don't have to understand anything from you.
It's not me.
Nothing.
By
It's no people that you're making up, bro. Move on.
But by posting
move
what
on.
you
Next
did,
question.
Anybody
Do you guys have any more questions for
and
me?
they're going to say,
you guys have any more
does he have
questions? Because this is going to be a clip.
beliefs?
This is going to be a clip that he's going to marvel at. Is this any more questions?
But you're not answering the question.
Oh, this is another answering your question. Oh my God, let's make another Instagram clip so we could be famous again. Next question.
Kyrie, basketball related.
So, I mean, I think that was very, very, very eye-opening. And to just follow up on that, today I heard of, and this is what really, because the producer and I were batting, going back and forth, should we just save this show for Monday night's regular show? And I said, no, this issue is too hot right now. Stephen A. Smith, who is taking the week off from First Take because he was sick, they thought he even had pneumonia, was brought in on several news stories. The biggest one was Steve Nash being fired, and many folk have laid Steve Nash's firing at the foot of Kyrie Irving's action. And you saw a contentious ending to that news conference. And it kind of answered the question that we were going, that Janis was asking. So Stephen A's take was Kyrie is the reason he was so contentious with a reporter who was asking a question, who gets paid to ask questions, is that Kyrie he thinks that he is so mentally above everybody else. He's so smart and everybody else is on a different plane below his intellectual level. So I'm glad I got a chance to see this again, to kind of put that together. They also brought out the fact that you heard the conversation about the word promote. And one of the panelists said, anything that you do on social media is promotion. Now, once I started doing the dialogue and our ministry became, for a season, was almost all virtual. I kind of shut down. I was a lot more socially active against causes, and particularly against that former president. But particularly when we started the dialogue, I stopped using social media as a forum to voice my opinions on some of these issues. If I'm going to be a moderator and be I'm looking for a word. If I'm going to be objective, so I kind of backed out of that. But I listened today, and so just take it over. Just you guys continue with what you just saw.
I want to bring this up, and I'm not sure if my mic is on or not. Okay. Listening to the press conference, and I thank Toya for that specific clip, I want to know what was controversial and what was contentious about it. You know, the term contentious and argumentative and your tone is always placed on a Black person when we are speaking our truth. And Mr. Irving, who said so eloquently that he's a free Black man, isn't he supposed to be a free Black man in the United States? And certainly his financial means allows him to be free in our society. The reporter, which you know I am a reporter and a journalist, I'm a multi-platform journalist. The questions that the reporter was asking were asked and answered. Again, the reporter had a certain perspective and agenda, which was to try to label Mr. Irving's comments as anti-Semitic. Then it came with this whole, controversial, you were promoting something. Well, the owner of Twitter has stated that it's a town square. So you can supposedly voice your views. If he placed a clip or a link of the video or the book on his social media, that was to promote discourse. And why is it, once again, when a black person brings up a topic and promotes discourse on the topic, is because if it is at all dealing with Jewish people in this country, it's automatically anti-Semitic, it's automatically contentious, it's just automatically all of these negatives. And I did not see that in that press clip. The man, being Mr. Irving, he was asked a question, he answered it. And so what about that press conference? We didn't see it all, but what was anti-Semitic? What did he say? I've still not been told that.
Dozell, do you have
I,
it with Kanye?
yeah, yeah. With Kyrie, the only thing that and Denali, you can help me with this. And I mean, you talked about Elian Gonzalez, and I've been wanting to talk to you about coming on the show and discuss that whole piece, and we never got around to it because this kind of got there. But I'm just hoping and praying that I can get you to come back at a later date, and we can have someone from the Hebrew Israelite um, sect, well, not sect, but spiritual being in a spiritual
Well,
group, and
yeah.
come on in
Well,
and,
the reason I wanted to mention this real quick, Dozell, I lost my train of thought, and you'll forgive me for this, especially Janis. I didn't get to finish. You weren't understanding where I was coming from. Got lost in the transition. There is that the reason I
From your
mentioned the LEM.
perspective, again, do not ever try to put words in my mouth. You are
Okay,
now,
thank
with your
you.
white
Okay,
privilege, stating that I didn't
okay,
understand what you
you'll
were
forgive me
saying.
for that. Okay, so what I was trying to say is, you see, when you have a certain perspective with people, I remember being down in Miami with all these different news organizations from all over the world, and I had a guy walk up to me that happened to be Afro American, and the first word he said to me was, if this was a black child, would you have went out of your way to help him? Because me and my cousin were the one that found this boy. And I said, you don't even deserve an answer. I said, that's so ridiculous. I said, when you're out on the ocean and you see a child floating in a inner tube 3 miles off the coast, what I mean, in rough waves. I said, it doesn't matter what they look like. You're gonna help to rescue this person. And I think that I would hope to think that other people would, but I can't speak for those other people. So what I'm trying to say is, when we have this mentality about, you know, if you're white, you would help this person. If they were black, what I mean? I don't know. That isn't who I am. I can't. I go at face value, Janice. So when you say white privilege, it's not me. I'm the kid that grew up around all different nationalities. And I'll tell you what, we go to a congregation where there's got to be 40% of people, what I would say, of color. And let me tell you something, we all get along. We go to each other's homes. We fellowship. Like Dozell. Dozell is my brother. You know what I mean? He's just my brother from a different mother. But the reality is, he is my brother. And you know something? This is what we're lacking right now when you're talking to me as a person that you don't know, saying white privilege. There might be some white privileged people out there. I don't know who they are. I never met them, but I'm not one of them.
That's laughable. It's
so can we do?
Okay.
laughable. And
Can
again,
we?
it's the naivety of people who
Okay.
have white skin who
So
do not understand. You brought up Elian Gonzalez. So let's talk about all the Haitian refugees all of my life that have been turned around to go back to Haiti. Let's talk about the Venezuelans who are provided political asylum because their skin is white. Haitians, get back, go back. This United States, we just saw last year border guards, federal employees whipping black skinned people who had just experienced an assassination of their president and a natural disaster, who were trying to get to the United States for some assistance, and yet they were turned around and were called economic refugees. But any other entity, group of people that come to the United States, aren't labeled that. I grew up when there were Haitian boat people stranded out in the waters. You want to talk about that? Constantly, black people from any country are not received the same way. You want to bring up things. I'm trying to understand the 15 or more billion dollars that have been appropriated and sent to the Ukraine. Every month is another 750 million or billions of dollars that go to the Ukraine. Yet we can't even talk about reparations in this country. We can't even talk about studying reparations to formerly enslaved people, the descendants, which I know I am one of them. So when I speak of white privilege, no, a person who is in this country, United States, who is white by definition, we black people did not create the 1/10 rule, black blood makes you black. You call President Obama black. Why is he considered black? His mother's white, his father's black. But why is he automatically considered black? That is white privilege. That is white naivety. That is what I'm speaking to. And for you to say you don't know about white privilege is because you walk under that. Let's talk about equity and justice. And just to merely acknowledge that the foundation of this country was founded on racism and exclusion of black people
But
in the
that wasn't me.
Constitution, in the Constitution. See, once again, you are speaking from a position of white privilege to say it wasn't me. No, you were not alive in 1619 when the transatlantic slave trade began. No, you were not alive 100 years ago to live under segregated Jim Crow laws. But by extension, you and your families, just because they're considered white in this country, have benefited. And to deny that is denying that racism is embedded in every aspect of United States society as well as the world globally. So
Well,
if you're blind
Janice,
to that, then we really can't have a discussion
no,
because
we can. But you know something? I think
because it
you're
is what it
going really
is.
deep. You're going real deep. I can tell you right now. I have two children that live in
There we
this
go with the
home.
proximity again.
No. I'm just
There we go
saying.
with the
But they're two.
proximity again.
No, I just want to say something. But the beautiful part is that there are two children that are here. They're not my children by blood, but they're here in this home. And I can tell you that if you run to categorize, if you were categorizing, they are black people. And let me tell you something. They do not have the same mindset that you have.
You don't
And
know
I'm
my
so happy.
mindset.
So
You don't know my mindset.
let me see if I can. And this is really another conversation.
That's true.
It's another conversation. It's a relevant conversation, but it's another conversation. Tonight, I really wanted to deal with um, the. You see, I guess I live in this this utopia mindset that we're brothers and sisters of oppression, the Jewish nation, the African American nation, the just for a lack of a better, the Native American nation. James Cone, the great black theologian, said this. He says, Jesus is always on the side of the oppressed, and I think Donato said that in a paraphrase way earlier. And so, because of that, it kind of hurts me to see our communities at odds. And I'm not talking about tonight. I'm talking about our communities being Kanye. So last week it was Kanye. This week it's Kyrie. And 2 years ago, in the midst of the pandemic, it was Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon has made amends with the Jewish community, but there is this, and I'm, we got to wrap the show up. And Donato and Janis, I hope and pray we can come back, because the underlying issue, and I'm getting questions in on this, and we can't do it all tonight. But I think a more relevant show, maybe a precursor show, should be: are African Americans original Hebrews? That's the question that I'm getting. Let me just repeat this question. Is it possible that Negroes are descendants of Israelites or ancient Israelites? And
Can I answer that?
Sure.
Okay, so I don't say that this is my answer, but from a biblical perspective, I wrote down some notes here from earlier, and then we got sidetracked. And I'm sorry, Janis, about that. But Abraham was from Iraq. So what we need to do is we need to go to Iraq today and see for the last the last 3,000, 4,000 years, the Iraqi people have not changed in who they are. Now, go to Africa, to the continent of Africa, especially what we call Black Africa, because in Morocco, you got Moroccan people that are on the continent of Africa, but they do not have any of the attributes and features of what we call the Black African nation. So this is not to undermine anything that the Black people could be a part of spiritually and biblically. But as far as saying that they're the originals, it's very hard to come to that, because Abraham had Isaac. Isaac had Jacob. Jacob's name was Israel. He had the 12 tribes, and they all came from the same people, as everybody knows. And then it was the nations started coming in after that. They started coming into Israel when they were leaving. They were leaving Egypt. You know, as you know, Dozell, as they were leaving Egypt, the Israelites met the nations out there, and they could never go into the other nations, but the nations could come into them. So, are there now today Black Jews? Yes, they are Black Jews. Are there other different types of different ethnicities that join that seed? But that original seed was from Iraq. If you think of Abraham came from Iraq, he was told to look to the land of milk and honey. So that's where, and anybody can look that up. I didn't make that up, but that's where he was from, is from Iraq. If you look at the Iraqi people today, they are not a Black African people, not even close. You know what I mean? The distinct differences. That doesn't mean that one is elevated over the other. It just that happened to be that God found favor with Abraham and he called him a friend. You see, and then he said, I'm going to take your seed and I'm going to bless your seed. So, you know, not to go so deep into it, when you say that, and maybe Kanye is not totally wrong.
I'm sorry.
He's probably not totally wrong when he's saying that, you know, there's Black Jewish people that are out there, but the original is from Abraham. And unless Abraham was from Africa and made his way to Iraq, and then, you know, it's hard to put that all together. But, you know, I think that people are barking up the wrong tree, because now we're looking at spirit. God is looking for those that will worship him in spirit and in truth. You see, he's not looking for our flesh. You know, we're all coming together. There's neither Jew nor Greek. There's neither male nor female. There's neither, it doesn't go like this, but I'll add it. There's neither black nor white. We're all one in Messiah. We're all one in Yeshua. That word Yeshua is translated salvation. So we're all one in the spirit. You see? So, yeah. Anyway.
Jan, I'm gonna ask you for a quick response, and guys, y'all gonna have to forgive me for this. I'm just gonna unapologetically ask you both that we can come back on in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and I want a brother from the Hebrew Israelite community to join us, and because that's really the root of this whole Kyrie, and so Kyrie's defending a film which defends that Africans are the first Jews, and then Kanye tweets it, and all of these are what has caused the controversy. One thing we haven't dealt with tonight, and I respected what you said, because I came back and followed up about the book, The Jewish Phenomenon. But there's an anger towards the Jewish community because of its absolute stronghold or monopoly, and because of that, on artists and the music community and the movie community, and that's what Kanye is saying in the tweet. He's saying basically, you can't control me. Don't try to control me, and that is the anger. And so anytime somebody steps out, it's as though the Jewish community accepts it, as it steps out and say, you're not going to control me. Well, if you are the one paying the check, you do control, as Adidas just showed him. So That I really want to follow up, and I don't want to take advantage of your time tonight and our audience's time and the producer's time, but I really want to come back and with the brother from the Hebrew, because it all boils down that both of them are saying, how can we be knocking the Jewish community when we are the Hebrew community? I don't by any
I'm not
means.
entirely sure that that's what he was saying. You know, if I just
Yeah, well,
literally
yeah,
read, when I
you.
literally read Mr. Irving's tweet, he says, "I'm an ominist, and I meant no disrespect to anyone's religious beliefs. The anti-Semitic label that is being pushed on me is not justified and does not reflect the reality or truth I live in every day. I embrace and want to learn from all walks of life and religions." And if you want to believe the Oxford Dictionary definition of an ominist, which Kyrie Irving said he is, that is the recognition and respect of all religions and their gods or lack thereof. So tell me again, what about his comment is anti-Semitic?
Well, let me just say this. I can tell you what the interpretation of it is, Janice, and I can tell you from that's the point I'm trying to make. That anything that as I think I don't want to use a term out of respect to I don't want to use the term oversensitivity, but anything that is anywhere near in the neighborhood of being perceived as a threat, economically, financially, physically, anything like that, the Jewish community, they use their power. And their power is it's an economic power, and they'll squash you financially if you are subjected to them financially. And that's what has just happened. Kanye's tweet did say that. Kanye's tweet did in fact say that. Kyrie's this is what Stephen A. Smith and I mean uh, Kyrie didn't have any defense. No one defended him on either racial. Nobody defended him today, and it kind of changed my perspective. Their thing was Kyrie knew what he was doing when he posted that video, because that video makes the point. And this is my question mark. I don't claim to know either side of it. That's what I want us to bring together and brainstorm that that Africans are original Jews, and that's what the video that he winked to. So Kyrie, I mean, don't. I mean, I'm trying to play this thing fair to you, but don't make yourself a victim, bro. You know what you were doing when you posted that. Stand by it is all I'm saying. You know what you were posting it. You were saying you need to check this out. It came right in the midst of the Kanye West controversy. If you want to ally with Kanye, you got the right, bro. I might even agree with you that you need to bring that issue. We need to stop playing with this issue, and we need to bring this to the forefront,
Let,
because
let, let me
there's
say this,
just no way that
Dozell.
Africans and Jews can be at odds with each other.
Let me
In
say
this
this.
nation, in this world, we're both downtrodden. You both made the case for that
Well, let
tonight.
me say this. Of us sitting here, I have actually helped to write hate crime legislation in this country that has eventually been passed. And so I am pretty well steeped outside of just being a black woman in the United States. I've also helped to codify in our federal laws the hate crime legislation and laws that people can be prosecuted under. And yet, this country still has a hard time prosecuting white people for blatant hate crimes. I mean, we were all subjected to the George Floyd trials last year. We all know that Emmett Till, that was a racially tinged murder execution of that child. And so I have stood up for others of all other races, creeds, colors, genders, whatever, to stamp out hate through legislation and through laws. However, the perspective that I am gathering from Mr. Irie, who was multi-ethnic, is also some portion of him he traces to the Native American indigenous tribes, which his mother was a member of. Again, I don't know what he said. It's not been pointed out to me that's anti-Semitic. And in that town square or public square of social media, he put something out there, And I guess he was seeking responses or some discourse on a large scale, perhaps more so than his dinner table, surrounded by friends and close associates. I don't know that there's anything wrong with that. What in that film and that book is hate speech? And if there is hate speech, then I would certainly defend not promoting it and the proliferation of it throughout the country. But point out to me what in it is hate speech, the film and the book that he was referencing, that
Well,
caused all of this controversy.
I'll tell you what it is. It's not hate speech. It's the crux of our conflict tonight. I mean, not our conflict, but it's the crux of our discussion tonight. Anything, this is the new. This is the new. It's not swastikas now. It's not Charleston. It's not that ex-president saying there are good people on both sides. It's now the Jewish community is now anyway, they're very much at odds with any reference to Africans being equated as original Jews. Donato gave a good explanation tonight, and I like the way he said, unless Abraham came from Africa to Iraq. Uh, I think that he didn't say he didn't come. He said if, and this is where I want to be in a phase of discussion. But now that is the new threat. Whenever blacks bring up that they're the original Jews, the Jewish community is now being overly offended by that.
Yeah, can I say something, Dozell? Now,
Sure, sure.
what we're dealing with, and I am not one of them, by the way, but that excludes me from the Orthodox community. Now, we're dealing with not just secular Jews, which are the everyday Jewish people, are just born Jewish, but you wouldn't know it by the idea they're not wearing payas, they're not wearing a beard like myself, or wearing a yarmulke, which we call a kippah. So you're dealing with the Orthodox, and they are very sensitive. I can tell you right now, even in Israel, they in the beginning, when they had some of the highways that were opened up on the Sabbath day, they were stoning people. You know what I mean? They have their own mindset, and it's a very narrow path. And I don't know. I'm not speaking for them, but I could imagine that that something like this would come up, and they're very, very vocal when people come against their community or maybe against their history, and it could be vice versa. You know what I mean? For me, I'm not that sensitive. I'm a guy that live and let live. You know what I mean? And you can say whatever you want to say on this side of glory. You know what I mean? But listen, when the lights go on and the party's over, you know what I mean, and the Lord appears, that's what maybe that little clip that's going to play tonight. That's my story. Is that we want to announce that the King of Kings is coming.
I appreciate that. Yeah, Donato, we didn't forget. We're going to outro with that clip.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that So the Orthodox Jewish people are very, very different type of group of people that in not only in America but around the world, wherever you find them, they live in their own segregated communities. They do only business together. They only do temple or congregation, what we would call church, together. They live in communities together. And Dozell, as you know, up there by the bank, all those houses over there, the Chabad, they're peacefully living together. You know what I mean? It's like the Amish.
Was not Inverary always equated as a highly Jewish influx?
Yes. This was always a big area for the last 40 years. A lot of Jewish people came from New York, Chicago, and other places, and they found their way here, especially like in Inverary where we're living. Yeah. This was a big, big Jewish area, and those people are, now that generation is passing away.
Janis, Donato, Madam Producers, I'm not going to indulge on any more of your time. I would like for both of you all to make just a
Can I say something to Janis? Janis,
Absolutely.
And I mean this sincerely. You know, we don't see each other. If we were across the table from each other, it'd be completely different. I do wholeheartedly want to apologize if I stepped out of the boundaries. It was never intended. I was just trying to understand where you were coming from. And guess what? After this show, I kind of understand exactly where you're coming from, and I have a respect for that. You know what I mean? And I just want to say, you know, I apologize publicly on here because I haven't met you, number one, but number two, I don't think it would be right that I would, you know, disrespect, you know, you. And you know, what you were saying before you were ready to jump and run. I said, no, 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 you know, that isn't who I am. So I just want to apologize, and I hope you'll accept it.
Well, I appreciate you doing that, because that is really what Black people in this country are looking for, is the acknowledgement that others are using their positional power to speak for us and do damage and do harm to us, whether that is economically, emotionally, division of our families, as well as our financial. Uh, you know, I mean, we can discuss all elements of racism that has happened in this country. The restrictive covenants, where you two are talking about communities in which are segregated or primarily populated by a certain demographic. Well, that wasn't codified in the U.S. Federal laws or constitution, but this constitution did exclude Black people from ever owning land, property, assimilation, even marriage. So that is where I am coming from, whether you understand it or not.
No, I understand
In the
that.
United States, this country, this government and local governments, federal and local governments, have excluded Black people from ever being. In fact, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Taney, said that a Black person, a Black person has no rights that a white man is bound to respect. See, this is where I'm coming from. I'm dealing with straight up history of the exclusion of Black people and our rights in this country. And so when any person says or tries to speak on my behalf, you don't know from whence I come. And so don't ever say that I think I understand, because you don't, because you haven't been there. Read
All
the
right.
history
I
and know
listen,
the
having
history
said that, you know,
before ever
there's a
saying
lot of
that.
people that think a lot differently, like Clarence Thomas. You know, you're talking about a Chief Justice, you know what I mean? And you
You
have
just
people like,
cursed us. You just cursed us when you mentioned his name.
oh, did we? Oh, sorry about that. Okay. I don't know. Anyway, listen, Ben Carson, another, you know, another guy. They just go, I
You're
know, but I'm
still
just saying,
cursing us. And he's a Detroit native.
He's from Detroit.
oh, is he from
A
Detroit?
brilliant mind, indeed, a
Yeah.
brilliant mind, but with a particular perspective, which is not held by the
How about
average Black
BB and
person.
CC Winans? Do you love them?
I,
They're from Detroit.
I know who they are. I have met
Very
them. I
much.
have friends who sing with them. But I mean, you can
the,
throw out a
the,
lot of Black people in this country.
the producer worked out
I'm
with
still
CC.
asking
So
the question, what did Mr. Irving say that was anti-Semitic? That's what I was brought here tonight to discuss, and we've discussed a whole lot of things outside of that. But I think if we really
well,
deal with it,
well,
what did he say?
so that's why I want to just kind of uh, end the conversation here and give us a chance to come back and make that the real crux, which it was intended to be tonight. That's the relevant question, Jan. And the question is, and Donato, you gave us great definition by saying Orthodox Jews are in fact offended, and that is where all the friction is. And so when we come back on, I'm going to bring a Hebrew Israelite on, and if you know an Orthodox Jew, Donato, or if you can help me bring one on to that discussion, I would like to bring on and further. That was the crux of this, because all of this problems with Nick Cannon and Kanye and Kyrie all emanated from that. That's the crux of it. Jews are saying the fact that you say that you are the original Jews is almost as offensive as saying you're gonna do a Holocaust part two. And so that's where the problem is. And I am saying in the middle of it, man, our two communities can never be at odds. We cannot let speaking spiritual, Donato, we cannot let the enemy bring division amongst us. If there are any communities that should be locking arms, it's communities that have been pulverized and mistreated by a society or a sect of people or a country or whoever. And certainly we both have, along with Native Americans and others. But we have
Brother, can
very
I tell you something? Listen, everybody has a story to tell and everybody has a wound to be healed. You know, the Italians came here on one side, my grandparents, they had it rough when they got here. You know, it wasn't easy to be an Italian in America. Today it's very vogue. The Italian restaurants, Italian shoes, the Gucci, all the Maseratis, Lamborghinis, all that kind of stuff. But the Italians didn't have it easy neither. Now I get it. The first ones to take the brunt of the Englishmen, which I am not one of them, you know what I mean, are the Black Americans that came over here, you know what I mean? And then you had the different groups that came here. But I can tell you that my grandfather, he came from Italy. He had a little convenience store in New York, and he was one of the only people in that city that served Afro-Americans. And I can tell you one thing, that I wasn't even born. I didn't even know him at the time. He died when I was just a baby. But I can tell you, not everybody that living in this country has this white privilege that Janis is talking about. I can tell you, the Italians didn't have it, and they had a whole different mindset. But listen, again, something. We have different levels of everything when it comes to people in this country. I mean, listen. There's some people that can get along with each other. There's people that can tolerate each other. And then there's other people, they just can't live together. You know what I mean? But I'm singing a different song.
And the purpose of dialogue the dialogue with those is to bring us together. And so that's why. So possibly, let's see, what is this? This is, I don't know if we want to do, maybe before we head into the holidays, maybe the show before Thanksgiving, we'll come back and
well, Dozell, we're leaving in a few weeks to go to Israel. Me and my wife, we've had a dream to go there and visit the Holy Land, and
So when are you leaving, Donato?
On the 17th.
That is so next Monday is the 7th.
Right.
So let's book this show for the following Monday, which would be the 14th. Are you available, Jan?
Yes, I can be available.
Okay, would you be available on that night?
Sure.
And I will try to get an Orthodox Jew in here. And Jan, we'll ask our brother down here in Florida, who's a Hebrew Israelite, to come on. And let's see if we can get to the crux of this. And I can't, that's why I shouted y'all out, because you guys are saying, let's come together and let's talk this out. But let's bring in people who are even deeper in the where the division lies. Let's see if we can get some resolution. And we may not be able to save Kyrie, we may not be able to save Kanye's contracts. We may not be able to keep Kyrie from being traded from the Nets, but at least our children and our children's children and future generations can say, hey, we're going to squash that right now. We're not going to let the enemy cause this level of division to come between our two nations. That's not going to happen. Thank you. If you got a final comment to say, we're going to go out in a special way tonight. Jan, if you got a final couple of minutes and you did not, take your time and just do that right now, guys, and we're going to go out.
Well, you know where I'm coming from, Dozell, as someone who helped to write the initial reparations for African Americans legislation 33 years ago in the U.S. Congress while working for Congressman John Conyers. That for me is the most important issue that should be discussed at all times. And the allyship with other groups is what I think should be discussed. How can Black Americans in this country be made whole? And we can never be made whole. Families were disrupted, were ripped from each other. Babies were ripped away from their parents, their mothers, spouses or partners were taken away from each other. Children were taken away. So this country needs to acknowledge that it happened and move towards a resolution, which in the United States under tort law, it's all about the Benjamins. It's money. I still want my 40 acres and a mule that our great, 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 great grandparents were denied. And I still want all of the rights and privileges that are denied me just because I'm a black person in this country.
Okay, Donato.
Okay, what can I say? I'm happy to be here tonight. The small contribution of this conversation, and I want to leave this conversation with a song. That song says, "Come on, people, now smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now." You know something? We need to love one another. We've been called to love. Now, I don't know, Janis, and I'm not going to come into your spiritual background, but I know those that name the name of Christ. You know what I mean? Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. We need to let the past go, and we need to go into God's future. And I can just tell you right now, the key to walking with the Lord is forgiveness and to love. Love those that have persecuted you, love those that hate you and despise you and do bad things to you or have done bad things to you. That's what he commanded us to do. So we need to love one another right now. We need to have a deep forgiveness, you know what I mean, within us, to forgive those that have despitefully abused us and done things against us. And if it this is individually now. We can't do it as nations. That's up to individuals. You know what I mean? We're never going to get a nation that's going to repent. America is far beyond its repentant stage. America is in a really bad stage. But I can tell you right now, for his children that call on the name of Jesus, those are the ones that need to forgive. He said to forgive those. So I'm calling out tonight that we forgive and that we love.
Thank you, Donato. Thank you,
Amen.
Janis. Thank both of you all. Listen, you're going to see the two of them back, and we're hoping to have another couple of guests with us to dive deeper into the division between the Hebrew Israelite community and the Jewish community on the 14th. That's Monday after next, right here on Dialogue with Dozell. You guys are what make this program special, and thank you so much. Janice, you had to come out of your role as guest host tonight and kind of get into it, but I love the way this show morphed into, and we're just going to dig deeper. We're going to go out tonight, very special. Donato is doing a ministry, and he's backing up. He's not just talking about loving. And well, if you only know how he and I how we have had to deal with each other business wise in the last couple of weeks, and to be able to come together and do a show like this is just epitomizes that love and forgiveness and everything wrapped up in that we're talking about. Let's go out tonight with Donato ministering, and we'll see you again on Monday night, and then on Monday the 14th, part 2 of this show. Bring and share it out and tell others about it.